Hey, y'all. Welcome to your show.
Don't be a victim.
I'm Lee Turner Jr. of Tango Firearms Training.
And I'm Buddy Myers of Tall Guns.
Welcome back for another week. I hope everybody survived them storms that looked like it swept across the Midwest down to here through the South.
Yeah, and the snows we had in Colorado, now we're already fighting fires again out here. How's that for craziness of the early part of the season? We were actually hit 78 degrees one day last week. It's kind of like, one we're freezing, the next time we're, starting to get hot again. And that's, we apologize for not being with you last week, but to be honest with you, we had the rare opportunity. Lee and I and our families were together again up here in Colorado. Lee was up this way, and an apology to the listening community, we flat ran out of time, and with business just going crazy. Yeah, things ran out of space.
Yeah, then I had to get back on the road and get back down here because I got some other things going on with the VA. So now we're back and we're back to running on the show. I think we talked about we was going to roll over this week into Riflescope and sighting systems for rifles and shotguns and
your long gun techniques.
Any type of long gun technique, even muzzle loaders. You hate black powder, don't you?
I don't mind them. It's just I got this problem of putting my hand in front of the hole in the barrel when I'm putting something live in there to shoot. Yeah. It is counterintuitive to me. It's even the guy that used to run the ramrod on the good old fashioned cannons, he'd stand to the side and throw it in. No, we're expected to stand right over the top of it and do the same thing. I'm sorry. It really cranks me up.
These old boys down here now, they love their black powder.
Well, good. I'll ship it all to them as I can.
There's some black powder shooters down here now. They like it.
Yeah, we have them up here in Colorado, early season, but I know down that way there's more. I mean, it's a heritage thing up here. We have a lot of black powder shooters that shoot different things, but, it's because of the distances that we're normally dealing with, and we don't have the woods where you can get in close. You'll get some who are really good at the stock because you got to get close to use a black, powder gun on, the bigger stuff we've got out here. And, it's an art. It really is an art of how they do it. And I God bless them. But I just have a problem putting, my hand in front of the muzzle. I guess it comes from being shot. It's like, this has happened once. It ain't happening again. No.
Yeah, I don't have any black powder, but it's not my thing.
Well, yeah. Speaking of things, most of you out there know that I'm not the biggest of Glock fans, but I've been increasing my fleet of training guns for my security teams here. I actually got a hold of because I'm seeing a lot more left-handed shooters, and they're really at a disadvantage shooting right-handed guns. So I got a hold of a Glock 17. It's a 9mm gun, normally used as a duty sidearm for law enforcement security, but it's a Gen 5. Gen 5, the slide release is on both sides of the gun, so it's right-handed and left-handed. But the only thing Glock didn't do, they didn't upgrade the magazine release, so it was ambidextrous. So I bought a part from Rainier, that's Rainier, and it's an ambidextrous magazine release for the Glock. And they're very gen specific. So this one that I got was for a Gen 4, a Gen 5 for this model. Put it in, and now I've got a completely ambidextrous, left-handed, right-handed sidearm that I can use in part of my training programs to facilitate the needs of the left-handed shooters. Kind of a nice tool, just as a tip there before we talk sights.
Yeah, I bet a lot of lefties are going to actually start looking for those now.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I've been impressed in how they shoot, too. I mean, I'm not a big Glock fan, but I'm starting to like them more and more I shoot them. And that Gen 5, the fact that it's ambidextrous and you can buy that extra piece if you want it to be shoot right-handed, left-handed. But if you don't worry about it, If you only are a left-handed shooter and you're only worried about a left-handed mag release, the Gen 5 also lets you take the factory stock mag release and flip it. And that's a user. You don't have to take it to a gunsmith to have that done, folks. There's lots of good videos on YouTube about how to do it. Matter of fact, there's one on Rainier's website, but well worth it.
I got my, since we're on sight systems, got my True Glows put on my M17, and I can't be more happier. I'm just telling you, a new sight system, right down to even a scope for long guns, can make shooting just as more enjoyable, especially when you're hitting more accurately. And, it's well worth the money if you're an avid shooter, a firearms lover, to actually improve your firearm with a new set of sights or scope, as we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and if you really want to be wild and crazy on your long gun scope, and you don't want to spend $6,000 to Ronnie Barrett, and Barrett makes a great product. They have what's called the Bores system, highly computerized as everything else. And you can spend a little less money, not a lot less money, to Burris, and with their Eliminator 2, 3, or 4, and you can get the Eliminator in 2 and 3 used or near new condition, different places. But I was messing around with mine this weekend on my 1AR that was built to shoot long distance. And, that Eliminator, what's nice about it, you put in the ballistic of the round you're shooting, it calculates distance, hold position, it, counts for the wind. It even has a thing you can accommodate and figure out with the humidity, the fall of the bullet. So, I mean, that's the upper far, end of, you get into sighting systems. But if you're more of a truest, what things are, well, first thing we always start out with are iron sights. And you get a lot of choices in iron sights. You got the flip up one in the rear that you can adjust it up and down. You got the little post out in the front of the gun that you can, that stays static. You got your, ladder type rear sight, which is where you lift it up and you can move that little ramp that moves up and down to raise and elevate it up and down different positions. You've got your classic M1 Garand M14, M1 carbine type where you turn a knob here, crank a knob there to adjust it left, right, height. You can even make changes to the front. You got the ones on the, the AR, the M16, the A1s, and even some of the detachable handle units where you can adjust it up, adjust it down, change the size of the peep by flipping it up and down based upon distance, change the post and adjust it. I mean, you get it, and then you get some that are just, fixed kind of sights, or ones that you flip up that are kind of like on the Sharps 1874 / the Quigley rifle, same kind of a setup I've got on my 1898 Craig Jorgensen, is that you flip out the back and you adjust, the distance you want to shoot out to 1,200 yards because it brings the nose of the gun up or down. So that's kind of your iron sights in a nutshell.
But now when we're going to talk about rifle scopes, first of all, first thing you got to take consideration is, what are you going to mount a rifle scope on?
Yeah, taking that into consideration, let's take a break real quick. All right, well, we're back from break, and that about blew my brains out. All right, go ahead. Take into consideration.
If you're going to just shoot a Ruger 1022 because you want to do some squirrel hunting, because we all know down here squirrel hunting is pretty popular. Out there, not so much.
No, we hunt things like coyotes and
but when you start looking at
lion.
that, you want to take am I going to put it on a 1022 or a 7mm mag? Now you want to say, well, I might want to spend the money on a high dollar scope if I am going to be shooting long range on a high powered rifle. But a good old 1022, you can definitely get away with a lower power and a cheaper scope, because you're not going to be shooting those distances, and they will hold their zero. And most good shooters will, once you zero your rifle scope in, let's say you zeroed in at 100 yards, you can easily, what we call Kentucky windage it. If you know you're going to shoot a little bit over that, aim a little higher. You can adjust with the type of scope that you have.
Yeah, and that would apply, with any, even with let's say a Savage Model 17 or an older Remington, 22 or a T10 or an A10 from Browning. Anything with those types of sights, you can adjust it, move the gun around, but then you can also go to a higher end with some of those guns. Like, I'll pick on the Savage 17. I've got one that's in 17 HMR. That's, Hornet A Magnum that has tremendous ballistic. It's a great varmint gun. I mean, yeah, shooting squirrels, but we shoot these things called prairie dogs. They're the ground squirrels. And you get a right type of a scope on top of there. And normally you're going to pay as much for a good quality piece of glass, and that's what we call scopes, as you are your firearm if you want quality. And yeah, you can reach out there. Even with that little 17, you're reaching out a couple hundred yards to whack stuff. But, because you adjust the scope. And inside the scopes, too, I mean, you've got different lines. I mean, that's something else to talk about. And you got to do a little bit of research about, is it mil dot, ballistic dot, cross-haired, graduated crosshair, mil spec, mil dot, I mean, blah, 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 to what works for the way that you shoot. You can't say, well, this one's the best, because I've got different ones for different guns because of the way the guns shoot and the ballistic of the rounds that I'm shooting. So you just got to make some choices.
Yeah. Because when you go out and you can choose like different magnifications, let's say. And, for what is the magnification? Well, the first number on there is usually going to be your image. You can zoom it up and bring it back. So if you go out and you choose a 9x42, or like me, I shoot a 6x52x24. Now you're looking at all these different numbers, wondering what do they mean and what do they mean to you? And again, what type of rifle would you be putting on? That size of scope, I have it on a 308 because I need it, but I wouldn't put it on my Ruger 1022. The 9x42 works just fine.
So you told them what the first number, Lee, was. What's the second number?
And the second number is your adjustments, your power.
And the last one?
Well, and the 52 is your...
it's the millimeters.
I have the brain. You have millimeters.
Millimeters of the size of the thing, because this is another thing that's squirrely, folks. You have 30s, 32s, 42s, 50s, 52s, all kinds of different parallaxes. And also, at the same time, you got to worry about the tube diameter, because remember, this is not tube diameter. Tube diameter is something else, because this becomes important when you buy the rings that you use to mount it on the gun. Or, they'll reference them as it's a 1-inch, or it's a 30 millimeter, or it's this or that. So you got to know what it is, because if you get the wrong rings, one, it moves all over the place. The other, you get two smaller rings, boy, you'll crush that tube, and boy, you've just destroyed that, $200-$300, scope, $400, $500, $1,000. I don't, if you're up there in something, high-ended, Night Force or something in a upper-ended Leopold, yeah, you've just, or even the high-ended, bursts, you've destroyed it. You're toast.
Yeah, a lot of people, you don't need to put Loctite on your these screws are very small. You don't need to talk, because if you start cranking down on thinking, well, I don't want my scope to move, you will strip them out.
Do yourself.
And then once you strip out them threads, you're screwed on that.
Yeah, and if you are gonna mount your own scope, you want to make sure that you learn about lapping, how to lap the inside so it doesn't move. You want to, maybe make the investment. If you can get a lapping tool, you can find them at Midway USA from Larry Potterfield, or you can find them at Brunel's, or borrow one from a friend if they're a shooter. The other thing is, as Lee said about Loctite, if you're going to Loctite them, Loctite purple. Breaks at 12 to 14 pounds of torque. Again, that based upon the caliber of the gun. You're shooting a 300 Win Mag like I do. Oh, yeah, I do it, because it will back the screws out of it. But get yourself, and they sell this at Midway, it's a Torx wrench. It's a small one for these types of screws, and then pay attention to your instruction manual that says what number of pounds of torque to use when you tighten it down. So you don't do, like Lee said, either one, strip them, or God forbid you ever cross-thread them, because then you're tanked.
Yeah, and now we can definitely talk about some Riflescope Manufacturers, because there's some out there you may overlook. There is your high dollar ones, which is your Vortex and your Leopolds. But there's one little one that's overlooked, I think, a lot by a lot of people just because the name throws them off. They think maybe it's a cheap rifle scope, but it is really good bang for your buck is a Barska. A Barska makes a really good scope for hunting, target shooting, and they are in a very nice mid-price range where you not have to pay that high dollar for them.
Yeah, they've been known for years for really good optics.
Because that's what my scope is a Barska, and I've been pleased with it. And a lot of people say, do you have to re-sight them in? You want to check them, but again, take them out. A lot of are bump proof. If you drop it on the ground, don't mean you got to go re-sight it in directly right away. But, I am a fan of the Barska, and the Bushnell is another good one, especially I like the Bushnells on my lower caliber rifles.
Well, yeah, and the lower calibers too. That's why I've got on a couple of my 22s. I've got what's called the B.
Do you have any top favorites?
Well, yeah. Can you hear me all right, Lee? Can you hear me all right?
Buddy?
Hold on a minute.
I don't know if we're still.
You hear me all right? Can you hear me all right, Lee?
I hear you now. I thought I lost you for a minute.
Oh, well, right? Yeah, you did. I was off wandering the woods. Yeah, I've got, I'll tell you what, on my lower calibers, the BSA Sweet 16 or Sweet 22 works really well on little 22 calibers. My mid-grade guns, I'll be honest with you, I do run Burris full field 2s. I like those really well. They're made here in Colorado, or at least the headquarters is here in Colorado. They make some of them in the Philippines, but they brought some of the manufacturer back here. I don't have any of their Steiner product, which I think competes more maybe in the Barska space. Redfield, they used to have Redfield scopes out there years ago. It's owned now by Burris because they used to make Redfield scope here in Arvada, Colorado. In the upper, I've got a couple of Leopolds, but I know everybody gets excited about a Leopold scope, but I'll tell you what, the Burris Full Field 2, the Full Field 3, I've been really happy with for it because Burris used to have a problem where it had a halo around the outer edges when you'd look through the glass. Well, they hired a friend of mine many, many years ago, and his mission when they hired him in there was to fix that problem. And he is a ballistic genius, so George figured out how to do it, and they've got a much better view of that now. And I mean, we're going back 10 years that they fixed this. But then the Cadillac of scopes to me, from the standpoint of if you're shooting with an AR, you definitely want to have yourself a Trijicon ACOG or the Burris 332 or 532 with a fast fire 3 support. But on that word, let's take a break and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back now. You heard me mention the word fast fire 3. They also make a fast fire 2. But what these are your same scopes that you see in all these little pistols now that are running around. Everybody's got these little red dot things on top. We used to call them, halo optics. But, the Burris 532, their 332, is actually kind of nice because it's battery powered. So for the normal everyday person, they work out great. And you're talking, sometimes you can get that fast fire 3 in one of those 532s or 332s in a package from somebody like a Bass Pro or someone else, and you can get it for $300-400. That's normally a couple $100 less than the whole package it cost you independently. Now you move into those Trijicon scopes, folks. Hold on to your seat because they run you right about $1,200 to $1,300. ACOG means Advanced Combat Optic, group. That's what it's designed for. I've got probably 3 of them on different firearms for different purposes. They've got a tritium, inside. And this is the thing about scopes. You got to remember this with their handguns or anything. Tritium does not last forever. It will have to be at some point in time refreshed. So you're either buying a new scope, or in some cases, if the manufacturer is set to do it, they'll fix it, they'll replace it, they'll upgrade it whatever it may be. So, you know, in the Trigicons, one that my favorite's the one that they issued to the Marine Corps, their MCO4 unit, and it actually uses not only the tritium, but it also has a fiber optic on the top. And then the Army came up with a good idea. It was a light diffuser. So over in the sandbox over there in Iraq and Afghanistan in the mountains, you get the glare of the sun. It wouldn't affect the scope so bad. And the Marine Corps picked the same one up. But they're like I said, you're gonna lay out some coin.
Yeah, and we try to do these shows for the working man. And that's why we're trying to, you know, we've been talking about Burris a lot, and Burris, I mean, they've been around since I think the early 70s.
Oh God, go back further than that, 60s.
60s.
Oh,
yeah, they go back to the 60s, and you know their scopes they offer a wide view, you know, accurate range, and they're also a fixed center reticle. So for somebody who's just starting out, and you can take it and sight it in on a 50-yard line, make sure you're getting hitting where you want. Now you can back up to the 100-yard line and fine tune it in. Don't ever take a brand new scope, put it on top of a rifle, and go to the 100-yard line, because you're going to be searching for little holes all over the place.
That's why you learn. Yeah, because if your gun is set up to where it's got a bolt or where you can pull the bolt out, you know, you can do a thing on bore sighting. I mean, I'll tell you what, Larry Potterfield's got a great video up on Midway USA about how to proper bore sight your gun and what that really means. Or you can put a laser insert in your gun and adjust it up to where you adjust that scope up to where that little laser comes up in the right position. But yeah, don't go out there right away, throw it on top and go, yep, I can shoot 100 meters right away. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. I don't see nothing. Lee, where did I shoot at? As Lee falls over. Well, that's where it went.
Yeah, I think it's way over there. I think there's a hole there. Well, we've done that, but, you know, I mean, one thing I used to do is I start out the 50-yard line, and you go to Walmart and buy. Remember, like the kids, they're like 4x4s, cardboard paper, and kids would cut on, draw pasty things on them. A big white sheet like that, white. And you post that 4x4 out there, just draw you a 6-inch circle. That's what you're going to start aiming at. Once you walk it over and you'll find it, it's going to be 4 feet. You're not going to be off 4 feet. Some people may, but the average shooter, you'll keep it within a 4 feet group. And that's 4 feet. They're 4 feet by 4 feet. Post that up. Just draw you a black circle with a black marker and start working your round in. Once you got it into that 6 inches, if you want to take the time to fine tune it at 50, which you can, then now you can back it up. Now you're going to be within a 6-inch group at the 100 yards.
Yeah.
So now you can take the time.
Yeah. Or you can, if you want to, you know, find either a gunsmith or an armorer, or that will laser bore sight it for you. You can pay the money and have them do it. That's another option if you know to take the time. But personally, you need to know how to adjust your gun, understand those what's called MOA, minutes of angle, because as you turn those buttons, it changes how that scope aligns, and it changes your shot left, right, different places, up, down. Read the manual for your gun. Just don't go what your friend over there told you to do, because maybe what they told you to do was for a different type of firearm. Maybe your gun's a quarter MOA adjustment. Maybe there's a 1/2-inch MOA adjustment. So they say, yeah, turn it 2 clicks. That'll bring it over, you know, X amount. And you do that, and it doesn't bring it over X amount. It's because you've got a much more sensitive scope at a quarter MOA to fine-tune it. So you read your manual, big time. Yeah. Read your manual.
And for our new shooters, the MOA, when Buddy's talking about that quarter, a lot of standard scopes are 1/4 inch. That means when you feel it go click, you turned it to the right or the left, and you feel it go click, that means you just moved your round, whatever way you moved it, because most of them have an L with an arrow going that way. So they kind of make them dummy proof. So you'll know which way you want to move your round. So if you want to move your round to the right, go opposite of the L. So 1 click is a 1/4 inch. So if I have to move my round 3 inches to the right, now you know you're going to go 12 clicks. Click, 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 click. And that's going to move you about 3 inches. It's going to give you a rough ballpark, just a rough one.
Yeah, and they got other ones that they've also got an adjustment on the top, which will bring the nose of the gun up or bring the nose of the gun down. Because if you're shooting too high, you want to bring it down. If you're shooting too low, you want to bring it up, and it'll say on the top, up, down, and and you just turn it. It's going to move inside what's going on inside the scope is depending upon if you've got a singular red dot or you've got, crossed hairs that are inside of it, or, you've got some type of different reticle that's inside. It's moving those lines up and down to adjust it to the way you want to shoot. And you may even have to adjust it based upon weather factors. Wind's a big one. Okay, I'm going to have to aim a little bit more this way. Or, based upon I'm going to shoot uphill, downhill, I'm going to change a little this way or adjust my shot by not messing around with my scope. And for God's sakes, don't be taking them off the gun when you go to storage. Just leave them on there. Get a nice cover from somebody like Butler Creek or somebody. They make this thing called the scapecoat that go over the top of your gun or over your top of your scope to protect it. And, don't be wiping it with your everyday handkerchief to get stuff off because you'll scratch the glass, guys and girls. You'll scratch it, and then it's like, well, tank that thing.
And, Buddy was dead on. When it comes to, like, Trijicon for their ACOG, that's top of the line for me. They are one of the best. To me, they are the best out there, but that's my opinion.
And they do make rifle scopes, too. Yep. If you want to, cough up the coin, that's your choice, depending upon the avidity of your hunting.
But now, Bushnell, they do make an ACOG system. It's about a third of the price, but then again, the quality is not matching the Trijicon. So what is your use for it, for your AR? Are you just a range plinker? Are you setting it up for hunting? Now you got to start thinking, what am I going to do with this rifle?
Yeah, because that's how I look at those type of scopes. It's like, okay, do I need a Ferrari? Okay, that's the Trijicon. Or do I need something more in the line of just a Cadillac? And in the Burris, the 532 and the 332 works. Or do I need to just take the family Chevrolet and run down to the grocery store to get something? And that's why I'd say the Bushnell comes in. So that gives you a full gap of what you want to buy and what you want to do. Gives you choices. But just don't get the one that says, George and Harvey's scope shot on the side of it. That's kind of down here below the, Yugo. Those of you that remember the Yugo from the 80s, that was a stellar car. But, so again, you got a wide choice. Wide choice.
And there's a lot out there. And again, we're just trying to help you start there, Again, what kind of rifle are you using it for? What is your purpose of the rifle? Again, my lower calibers 22s, I'm staying with that, $150 scope that I know is going to do the job for me. And hunting season is going to break out. I'm not an avid hunter anymore, but I do still yearly check my scope settings. I try not to drop my rifles. Usually they'll take a bang or two, so you don't have to run right out to a range and check them. But there's ways of making your adjustments if it's off. Just as long as read, like Buddy said, most important thing is reading your little book that comes with it, tells you about the scope. Because you're going to want to know when you start clicking on them dials, how much you're going and which way you are going.
Yeah, because it can have an effect too. I mean, the scope can even be designed to work with specific calibers, and it doesn't play well with others, so make sure you pay attention to that too, and don't get a scope for your 308 and then decide, well, crap, I don't like that one, I'm going to put it over here on my 22. It's going to be different, boys and girls, and don't do the vice versa either. Make sure you kind of look and know that ahead of time. And even some of the scopes, you'll find them inside. You'll see this thing that slides back and forth on the bottom. It looks like two carrots. When I say carrots, not like Bugs Bunny carrots, little angles, look like pyramids on either side. No, it can move. Well, what that is, that's a leveler, because when you're on target and you've got the gun level and you're aiming, it will be level on the bottom too. Otherwise, you'll have a slight angle to them, because it'll show you that's the way they're designed to work. It's the way they're designed to work, to tell you if I got level to shoot my shot. Well, I think we've pretty well thrashed this subject around a little bit, Lee. Yeah. If you'd like to hear more about sighting systems, you can always send us an email at, dbavictim@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to talk about it in the show. And as usual, Lee, if you take us into your close.
definitely, as always, watch your six, watch your family six, and just be careful in these times that we're in, because as long as you have our Lord and Savior in your life, 6 feet ain't so far down.
And as I tell you every week, freedom is not won on the battlefield, but in the school and the home. Know what your children are being taught and what to teach them. And if you want to see an example of freedom and the desire to protect it and maintain it, you watch Ukraine and say a prayer for those people. Until next week, have a good one.